how about WWE at the Super Bowl? And I know that there's a presence there, and it's become somewhat of a regular thing for basically the sports and entertainment or sports entertainment world to all converge on the city of the Super Bowl every single year. That's a regular thing now. Radio Row, which used to be a much bigger deal, you walk around there, and I went there as a media representative of SiriusXM when I was doing the Fantasy Sports Channel and things like that, and it's kind of a who's who. There's players that didn't make Super Bowl, they're hawking whatever they're sponsored by. Hey, there's Mark Sanchez for Gillette. He's going to talk about whatever, all that stuff. That's what it is. And now everybody goes there because it's becoming a media event. And, I think Seth Rollins there last year. It's very normal. It's very normal for people from all walks of sports, entertainment, and sports and entertainment to be there. And when I went, now we'll talk about my story, in 2020. So I had been with the company. I started in September 2019. I get told, I want to say late December, hey, we would like to have some representation for the WWE and somebody to cover the Super Bowl for the company. And at the time, I was doing double duty. I was the lead fantasy football analyst for Bleacher Report, where I do still appear from time to time. And I was working in Las Vegas in addition to working at Stanford. Yeah, that schedule was nuts. My first year with WWE, I was also working in Las Vegas on the weekends doing a fantasy football advice stage show at Caesars at the Sportsbook on Sunday mornings. I would fly out there Friday night late, and I would do the show Sunday morning, do 6 hours of radio on Sirius, take a red eye back across the country, and then I'd be at WWE on Tuesday morning and would be there till Thursday. And that was my first. I started both of those. I had worked for Bleacher Report for years, but I started WWE and this Vegas venture with Bleacher Report at the same time. I had been with Bleacher Report for a few years at that time in that role. So I did both. So I was very much in the football world. I was still doing radio for SiriusXM for the fantasy side. I was the lead fantasy analyst for Bleacher Report, and I had started with WWE. So I started in September 2019. The bump debuted October 2019, same night as Dynamite, for those who don't know. Bump and Dynamite, both in the same day. It was also the second week of NXT on the full USA deal when they tried to go head-to-head with AEW. My, how that has changed so much in the last 5 years. And NXT moving to Tuesdays and now the ratings and all that. We'll get to that. So I get asked at the end of December of 2019, hey, we would like to have some representation. Some of our wrestling talent is going to be on there or at the different events. Would you go and cover it? As a host, as a reporter, sure, I'll do that, no problem. And when I went down there, I didn't really know what it was going to entail. And they didn't know either. They was just like, we want to have somebody down there. We'll send you down there with a producer. We don't know what that's going to entail. Okay, you got it. So going back to yesterday's story, I knew that week because it was Rumble and the next weekend was the Super Bowl. The Rumble, I think more often than not, now it's in February, and the Rumble, more often than not, used to take place the week, that off week between the AFC, NFC championship games. Then there was that off week with the Pro Bowl and then the Super Bowl. So the Rumble took place that weekend. This is the Drew Rumble. So Drew wins the Rumble. Now, I think I've told the story before. I'll tell it again. You saw that picture of me holding up the Mania sign because Drew had won. And Drew was not the scheduled guest for the bump that week. I knew Edge was coming back. I had been tipped off about that. That happened. So that was the show that week. This is 3 days after Drew wins the Rumble and a few days before the Super Bowl in Miami. So I know Edge is going to come back at the Rumble and I know he's booked for the bump that week. And based on that, I get asked, hey, do you just want to fly to Miami on Wednesday, miss the bump, or do it from down there, and then, make an appearance from Miami and then go and do all your stuff? And I said, no. And I think the person who would ask me may or may not have known about Edge being booked. And I was like, no, I want to be there in studio. I wanted to be there because I knew Edge was coming back at the Rumble, and I knew that Edge was going to be in studio. So what ended up happening was Edge was not in the studio and never appeared in studio. And now he's in AEW. But he's also recovering, so get well soon to Adam Copeland. During the watch-along that we used to do during the Rumble, I get a heads up, hey, Edge is not coming in on Wednesday. Something happened with creative. It changed. We're going to try and get the Rumble winner, which I didn't know was going to be Drew. And that happened. We pivoted because, if you remember, Edge throws Orton out of the Rumble, but they were cool. The next night, Randy attacks Edge, Concerto, he's out. He's got to sell that. He can't be on the bump. That was also to the point where Beth was calling NXT, and they didn't want her to appear on After the Bell with Corey, so I stepped in as a last-minute guest and was on After the Bell with Corey, which, by the way, if you want to hear more about that, go to the archives at thewrestlingmatchshow.com and listen to the episode I did with Dan Reichert of Giant Bomb, who at the time was just coming into WWE to run podcasts from a podcast director standpoint. So Drew is now on the bump that week. And it's his second time on the bump, second time in studio. He was on the third episode of the show. Right as he's trying to, there's the conversion from him being a heel to more of a badass babyface, and he wins the Rumble and all that, and he's over. And he comes, and he was great. And you guys know, if you ever watch me, Drew's one of the best, someone I consider a friend. And I was happy about his success then when I was just kind of, learning about him as a human. But, years later, somebody I consider a friend. And I was happy for him, and I could tell what it meant to him. So I still was in studio for that episode. And the deal was, as soon as the episode ended, I was getting on a plane and I was flying to Orlando, not Miami, because at the time I was doing the NXT injury report. That is so far in the past, but it was one of the first things I did outside of the bump. About a month into my tenure at WWE, if even that, I was asked about doing this NXT injury report, which was a Triple H idea. And for those that have asked about this, and by the way, get your questions in, super chats go to the front. The NXT injury report was supposed to be a way to sell injuries, supposed to be a way to sell what happened in matches. I liked the idea. It was a sports-related feel. It was Triple H's idea. It turned into a real and shoot thing. I remember like when Karrion Kross had first started NXT, they would have people get destroyed by him, and those people would end up on the injury report. That was just selling him being a monster. But people who actually got a little bit banged up or whatever, they would end up on the injury report kind of for real. Now, they had to give approval because I think it was a HIPAA thing. Legit, I think it was a HIPAA thing. They had to give approval. And some people did not want to be on the injury report if it was a shoot, if it was real, for whatever reason. But I was doing the NXT injury report, so I would get told, okay, here's the injuries, and I would write the script, and there would be, certain terminology of he's got a broken capsule of the elbow, whatever, the stuff like that. I would do these blurbs, and it started as something we shot in kind of they don't even use it anymore, one of the main areas of the digital building. There was WWE Now's Mackenzie used to do, and Ryan Popola did them, and now they do them somewhere else. But they shot them there, and then I said, hey, can we do this kind of Sean Mooney, Mean Gene, Control Center type of thing with all the screens behind me like they used to do back in the day? So we actually started shooting it in the bump production, where the board was and all the screens were. In the control room. We shot it in there, and we put all the clips up behind us so I could point to it or whatever. I love the feel. It had an old school. It was an homage to the past, and it was a different look, so I would talk about the injuries and all that. So I say, hey, listen, if I'm going to Miami and the producer that was coming with me is working NXT, what if I just fly to Orlando? I go to NXT. I do I tape the injury report at Full Sail where they were at, and then we'll go to Miami. And that's what we did. So I do the episode. I go Houston for the Rumble, because now football's over, so I could go right to Houston. I did Worlds Collide, the first one. That was a pay-per-view. That was I think it was Imperium and Undisputed Era, and somebody got a concussion. The next night was Rumble in Houston. Edge comes back, and Drew wins. I fly back to Stanford. I do the bump on Wednesday. As soon as the episode's over, I get right to the airport, which was like LaGuardia or JFK. I fly to Orlando. I get to Full Sail as NXT is starting. So I watch the entire show and all that stuff, and I find out what the injuries are. And I do voiceovers for them, and we shoot me in Full Sail. And okay, the NXT injury report, I'm at the show. Let's make it even bigger. That was my idea. Cool. Now I get in the car with the producer, and we drive from Orlando to Miami. I think we got there at like 3 or 4 in the morning. And now here's our week. We're there from, this was an NXT, it was on Wednesdays. We're there from Thursday till Sunday morning of the Super Bowl. So I was out of Miami by the time the Super Bowl, I watched the Super Bowl from a couch, not in Miami anymore. So here's what the week entailed. It's just me and a producer, the talent that had been brought in by WWE during the week was Charlotte, Nia, Mojo. They were kind of like the there all week people. I think New Day might have done something, but I never saw them. And there's all kinds of events going on. So the first day was a Thursday. I think I have my timeline right. So we're just going to cover this, and it's going to be put on digital in some way, shape, or form. Just very much like, hey, WWE's here, and here's what's going on with our superstars that are in Miami for the Super Bowl. And I'm Matt. Okay, so we get to the hotel where Charlotte is staying at, and she's with the entertainment relations people. And this is where the story takes a hard left. As we get to the hotel, and we're waiting outside with the entertainment relations people for Charlotte to come out, everybody gets this work email. And this is early, so this is 2020. And it's the fact that Vince decides to get rid of, at the time, the number 2 and number 3 people in the company. This is pre-Nick Khan. We're not even there yet. George Barrios and Michelle Wilson fired later. Some kind of disagreement about financial stuff, and the stock tanks. Like, soon as it comes out, down. There is concern. I'm standing with these entertainment relations people, and I think Michelle Wilson at the time was technically their boss. So they're looking at their phones as they're trying to wait for Charlotte Flair to come out and do all her media hits, and their boss gets fired. And when that happens, you're going to get worried. What does that mean for me? So I'm with this producer, and he's like, maybe we should get out of here. Hey, this is Matt Camp. Thanks for checking out one of our recent clips from the Wrestling Mat. Why is someone so close to The Rock kind of throwing Cody under the bus?
Yeah, a lot of people won't engage with Jim Cornette. I did, just because I have a mark for Jim Cornette. And
Please subscribe right now. Hit the like and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. And I think you should listen to your TV partners. Let me tell you about WWE and a little insight. More subscribers means more content. And make sure you follow us on social media at WrestlingMat23 on both Twitter and Instagram.